It's time for
DodgerHeads.
high fly ball into right field. Dodgers have won it all in 2020. Shohei Ohtani, 50-50 club. Strikes him out. There's a drive. Shohei Ohtani. Freeman hits the ball. She is gone. Birthday party, Los Angeles. Your Dodgers have won the World Series.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Anthony Witrado, a special Monday night edition to celebrate the winter meetings. In the spirit of the winter meetings, I have my favorite Christmas sweater on. Anthony, happy Monday to you. I missed the 2-hour marathon last night. You guys held it down, though.
Yeah, me and Matt, we were grinding last night, man. The chat was good. It kept engaging and asking good questions, so we kept rolling with it. And we looked up, and it was like 1:45 in, and we were like, "Oh boy!"
I love it. I got home from my Christmas party, and I'm like, they're still going. These guys are after it. So held on. Matt said you didn't quite make it to the full 2-hour mark, but we'll round up. I think
Yeah,
Matt
we
gets
got to like
the benefit of the doubt.
158 and some change or something like that.
It's all right. It's all right. We appreciate everybody hopping in. Again, this is a special Monday edition because Dave Roberts, Brandon Gomes both spoke to the media today. Some interesting nuggets to get out of this. So here's the plan. We got 7 takeaways from the quotes today from Dave Roberts and Brandon Gomes. We're going to fire through these. We're going to be out of here in about 45 minutes. We'll be done by 8. And then tomorrow night show, Tuesday night, TBD. If there is news, if there is something to talk about, Bruce and I will be here. If it's a quiet day with no real moving and shaking, then we'll probably take the night off and wait until Thursday to break down anything that happens. Of course, if the Dodgers make a move in the next few days, you can expect that we will be live very shortly after that. But let's talk to the 7 stories that came out of today, Anthony. And some of these aren't going to be surprising to you. Some of these are confirmation of what we already knew. But let's start with, I think, the quote from Dave Roberts that made the biggest rounds today, Anthony, which was him saying, pretty much this roster's good. We don't actually need a big splash. Didn't rule out the possibility of making a move, but saying we kind of like where we're at, and if we don't do anything major, we're good with that. What were your thoughts on Dave's quote here?
I thought that they wouldn't necessarily come out and say that as blatantly as they did, but it's Dave with the mic in front of him, and sometimes he goes a little off script. But we heard later in the day Brandon Gomes say something similar. So I think it's sort of the party line at this point. It's also not too surprising because I think it's when you really drill down on this team, it's not that unexpected. One, it's a pretty shallow free agent market.
Yep.
And the trade market's not much better in terms of like impact needle moving kind of players. And which also means that the cost is high. Whenever the pools are shallow, then the prices go up because there are a lot more buyers than there are sellers. So I think that for the Dodgers, I think they understand that they need to get better in certain areas, right? Like the offense has to be more consistent. They would like to get some upgrades in the bullpen, and possibly that comes externally. But I do think they understand too that they can make fringe moves to cover up the outfield, and that they can look internally to sort of shore up some of that bullpen and maybe add an arm here or there via trade, or maybe it's on the market. Most likely trade, I would say, if they don't go after a guy like Suarez. So yeah, not earth-shattering news, but I was a little surprised to hear them say it this early, I guess, in the winter.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, Jim Bowden says Suarez is going to get 5 years and $80 million on the free
From the
agent market.
Dodgers.
Yeah, from the Dodgers. So
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense on all accounts. That's a joke, by the way. But I'm with you. I mean, I think I've said it a couple of times on this show. It is very easy as Dodgers fans to key in on, because there is like a glaring need, which is in the outfield, and then a somewhat glaring need in the bullpen. It's a little less like obvious because of how many bodies they've got down there and how much money they've already invested. But it's easy to forget that most teams in the league have like 4 glaring needs and they don't address all of them. And I'm not saying the Dodgers are going to fit into that camp, but keep in mind the Dodgers are bringing back basically the entire roster that just won the World Series. Conforto wasn't on the roster. Obviously, Clayton Kershaw played a big part in getting one out, but that was about it. You've got some of the guys that weren't really featured. Kike Hernandez, really the only player that got real playing time that is not going to be back on this roster. And so if I'm Dave Roberts, I'm saying we just won the World Series with this crew. And oh, by the way, we might be getting a little bit healthier. We're expecting some improvement in the bullpen. And we've got some young guys that we think are just going to get better. Sheehan's going to get better. Robleski, Kasparius, Dreyer. These are all people they expect to improve. Yeah. And so if I'm Dave Roberts, I understand the essence of what he is saying. Where I disagree, and maybe disagree is the wrong word, where I diverge from Dave Roberts is I still think they're going to make a big splash, Anthony. I refuse to believe that the Dodgers are just going to sit on their hands, not make a trade, not add an outfielder, not add a reliever. I think they are. They don't need one, Dave said.
Sure.
Which I agree with. I also think they're going to go get one anyways.
I think that, the whole, like, we don't need to do a whole lot mentality, like is said as a sort of, like I said, a company line statement, but I do think they understand that there are certain needs that have to be addressed in one way or another. I don't think there's any denying that, they underachieved last season and they still won the World Series in 7 games. My question to you is, based on everything that's out there, when you say a big move, whether that be trade market, free agent market, whatever, what constitutes that in your mind?
I think they're going to make a trade for an outfielder that's going to cost them multiple prospects. Now we could, again, I don't think Harrison Bader qualifies as a big move. I think Suarez would probably qualify as a big move because I think he's one of the 4 or 5 best relief pitchers on the market.
I'd agree on Suarez, yeah.
But I think they're going to go out and they're going to get an outfielder who is going to start and be expected to start 75% of the games this year. So whether that's a Duran or an Abreu, it sounds like Kwan is not, maybe there's not a whole lot of heat moving off of there. Byron Buxton, unlikely now. Yeah. I just find it hard to believe they're not going to go after somebody on the trade market who is expected to be a serious contributor on the big league roster.
Yeah, that's fair. I also think because of what the market is, the cost can't really dictate the size, significance of the move.
Sure.
I don't think Stephen Kwan is a huge deal, but he's going to cost if they set their target on him and they went and got him, he's going to cost. Again, because there's a lot more buyers than there are sellers right now. And in the outfield, there's not a lot of, it's slim pickings. And so, Duran would cost, I would imagine. And he hits from the left side, so I would imagine he could start you 70% of the games or so, because I don't think he plays against lefties. He's more of a platoon guy, but there's more righties, so he would play the majority of the time. Yeah. That one I could that would be borderline for me. That'd be pretty close to a big blockbuster kind of move. The only thing I could see now with Buxton off the table, the Twins pulling him back. Not that he was ever out there, just he said that he was willing. I would think that of realistic options that we feel right now, because not counting Tucker, not counting Diaz, I would say Suarez, a trade like Duran or Abreu, those are kind of the only things I see as qualifying in that realm. I'm with you. Bader, not so much. Kwan, not so much. But yeah, just kind of not a lot out there, I think, for what in the aisles that they're shopping in.
Yeah. I mean, and again, big splash is relative. I don't think they're going to spend $400 million on Kyle Tucker, but I think going out and getting a guy like Suarez, who had 40 saves last year, 36 the year before that, sub-3 ERA guy. I mean, you're talking about a dude who's on the short list of the best relievers in Major League Baseball. And so I know he's 34 years old. He's going to turn 35 in March, but to me, he still qualifies as, he would be the best reliever they have in the bullpen. I mean, depending on what you think about Tanner Scott, if they went and got Robert Suarez.
Yeah. Matt asked me yesterday what I thought, leaving the winter meetings, what would ideal be? And I said Suarez at this point, given who's off the market, what's left on the market in terms of relievers. And I said, you know what? Suarez would be a significant upgrade, to the back end of that bullpen. And then beyond that, we cycled through a bunch of names. Donovan was one of them. But yeah,
like would Donovan qualify? Would Donovan or Nootbaar, would one of those guys qualify as a splash to you?
they'd be a splash for us, like looking at this roster, it's a splash, but I don't think it's like a blockbuster deal. Like if they pulled it off, it would cost them though. Like a guy like Donovan's going to cost them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think anyone's accusing the Dodgers of like continuing to ruin baseball if they went and got Donovan.
Fair. Speaking of Suarez and the bullpen, real quick, one of the other quotes that we got today was Dave Roberts speaking about Tanner Scott and saying, hey, I think 2025 was an outlier year for him. Basically, we're expecting this guy to come back and make an impact. Now, he did say that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be our closer. He's going to be shutting things down in the 9th inning. But how confident are you that what Dave Roberts says, that 2025 was an outlier for Tanner Scott, how confident are you that that's true?
Based on, his recent history, it's true.
Yeah.
And I think that's why
entire history, right?
Yeah. And I think that's why we all thought like, okay, he's going to bounce back. And then like any glimmer of like, a few consecutive outings, we were like, oh, okay, maybe this is it.
Yeah.
It never happened, never materialized. But I do think that he's going to be better. Is he going to be the Tanner Scott they thought they were buying when they signed him? I think we're still way too far away to make that determination, but I'm confident in saying that he's going to be better than he was this year.
Well, I mean, let me push you a little bit on this. He was a 4.74 ERA guy. Yeah. So when you say he's going to be better, if I gave you 3.5 as the over/under for ERA, would you take the over or the under?
I actually would take the under.
Okay, yeah. So we're talking like a significant improvement. Now he was 1.75 the year before that, 2.3. the year before that. So you're not saying, hey, the Dodgers are getting back one of the 5 or 6 best relief pitchers in baseball, which is what we thought we signed a year ago.
Right.
But he's going to be more in that. He's a weapon out of the bullpen. Maybe not. I'm trying to think of guys they've had in that back end, like maybe not quite to the level that an Evan Phillips has been at his peak, but one step below, maybe kind of that 8th inning setup man type, more so than just like lights out, hand him the ball in the 9th and it's over.
And it's over. Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I would be one. I think that's right about where my expectations are. And 2, I'd be very pleased if that was the comeback that he made next year.
It'll be interesting. I mean, just looking at some of the numbers for Tanner Scott, a couple key indicators. Fastball velocity was down, lowest it had been since 2020. Strikeout rate has now gone down in back-to-back years, was 12 in 2023, 10.5 in 24. 9.47 in 2025. He did bring his walk rate down below 3 for just the second time in his career. Home run rate, though, went from 0.38 to 1.74. So you can see kind of the
correlation there.
Yeah. And this is what we talked about. Like, I remember when they signed Blake Snell and we had Lance Brozdowski on, and I kind of joked, like, have the Dodgers found an entire new philosophy for pitching? Because when they went and got Blake Snell and honestly, Tanner Scott, it was a bunch of guys that they didn't throw meatballs. They walked people at a much higher rate than you would expect elite teams to be targeting. But it was almost this approach of like, that's fine if you walk people. We just don't want you throwing it right down the middle. Unfortunately, Tanner Scott struck out less people, walked less people, and gave up more home runs, which tells me without having to dig too far, he wasn't nibbling, right? He wasn't around the edges. He was right down the middle, and that's a problem.
Yeah, it's not ideal. And I think there was some talk about like, did the Dodgers try to change his approach and did it doom him? If that were the case, I think everyone would have recognized the fault in that early on because he wasn't good, like basically the whole season.
Yeah.
And they would have tried to change that. Now, if that's the case and he was not able to change that, that would be odd to me. So yeah, it's just a weird situation. I do think that I would just say, you know what, go back to what you were doing before.
Yeah.
And we'll live with that. Like if you walk a few guys, like, all right, because the strikeout rate at one point was elite. And so he's like Blake Snell, right? If he nibbles, walks a guy, he can get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. David,
because for relievers too, it mainly still comes down to run prevention.
Totally. And that's why their numbers can flip so quickly from year to year. Because when you only throw 65 innings, and that's a guy who throws a lot, you give up a 3-run home run, that's going to hang with you for a lot longer than a pitcher who's going to throw 200 innings in a season.
Well, it's why so many people were high on Devin Williams and why he still got the contract that he got when he had a 4.5 ERA is because that's what happened to him. He had some balloon innings, some balloon outings, and it spiked that ERA. But you looked at some of the other numbers and you looked at when and how those runs came against him, and you went, whoa, for the majority of the time, this guy was still excellent out of the bullpen. It's just, to your point, it doesn't take a lot to make things look very ugly.
Yeah. And I like Tanner Scott, and I'm optimistic about him, which will surprise nobody. However, all of the sort of sticky indicators like FIP, for example, there's not a ton of reason to believe underneath the surface with Tanner Scott. You're betting on a guy that returns to 2024 levels, not he got unlucky in 2025, which I think is a very different conversation.
Totally. And I think a lot of that has to do with two numbers. He wasn't walking guys and he was giving up home runs. Those are not going to help your FIP because if you're walking guys, but you're preventing runs, it might make some of your other numbers look ugly, but the FIP's going to go down. Or if you're striking out a ton of dudes, same thing. And if you're not giving up home runs, you got a little unlucky here or there, you walk some guys in a blooper or something like that. That's different, right? He's giving up bombs. Your FIP's going to go up.
Yeah. David with the super chat, reading and hearing a lot of trade rumors for Tarik Skubal. Any truth to this? There was a KTLA reporter, I believe, who reported something. He's kind of on an island on that. I don't know anything about him. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just telling you, none of the people that are traditionally plugged in with the Dodgers have reported it. The Tigers have said, hey, my job as a GM is to listen to anything. Nobody here is untouchable. Doesn't mean something's likely to happen, but I'll listen. What do you make of this? Is there any smoke to you even in this situation?
I don't think so right now. At the end of the week, maybe it's billowing, maybe. I don't think anything happens with Skubal during the winter meetings. I think that's going to take a while if it does. But I think all parties are saying essentially what they need to say, especially the Tigers. Look, the guy's going into a walk year. We don't know what it's going to cost to bring him back. Look, the Tigers should bring him back. They can afford to bring him back.
Yes,
that's a whole different thing. But to say hey, we wouldn't be doing our jobs properly. We wouldn't be serving this organization's best interest if we didn't listen when people came calling.
Yeah. And I appreciate the honesty because he's absolutely right. If you're the Tigers, you absolutely should at least be willing to listen on Tarik Skubal. Because if somebody bangs down the door, if the Dodgers were to call them and say, we'll give you all 4 of the outfielders and throw Emmett Sheehan on top just for fun, it'd be foolish not to, at the very least, listen, let alone accept. Sure. And so I've never understood the people where it's we're not even going to listen. It's you should always be listening. It's why the Dodgers traded Dustin May in the middle of a season they were trying to win, because they were they got a deal, that they couldn't refuse, even if it seemed to be at odds with their short-term goals. If you're the Tigers, you're not winning anything in 2026. And so if you can get an absolute haul that sets your franchise up for success for the next decade by moving this guy that you may or may not have a chance to re-sign in a couple of, 1 year, right? He's only 1 year.
He's got 1 year left. Yeah.
So obviously the qualifying offer, yada, yada, yada. But, if you're the Tigers, you should be listening. You should, more importantly, you should be re-signing this guy, but you should also be listening.
Yeah, agree. And look, are they going to go into the season as favorites? No, but they were a game 7 away from being in the ALCS. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
I do think they should have expectations and they should have hopes, and to take that club and to say we're going to sell our best player, by far our best player. That's a whole other baseball thing that needs to be addressed. But for now, I think that, of course you listen, because if a team gets desperate enough and they call you and they say, here's the package, and it's one of those offers that you can't say no to. It's the Paul George trade in the NBA or the Mark Teixeira trade in Major League Baseball. Okay. You know what I mean? And I don't think they would be chastised for it if the haul is good enough. So due diligence on everyone's part here.
Yeah. If you're the Dodgers, would you be at all concerned about giving up the farm for a guy in Skubal who is a free agent a year from now?
Yes, because LA is not for everybody.
Yeah.
And they already have a 6-man rotation.
Yeah.
You can name those 6 guys right now. It's not like they're looking for numbers 3 through 6. They know who those guys are right now. So now, obviously, Skubal is a completely different level than like 4 or like 3 or 4 of
Honestly,
those
all
guys.
of them. He would be number 1 in this rotation.
Yeah, and I think because he posts, like, I think Yamamoto and Snell both have a case that if they can make 25 starts each, that they can win Cy Young awards.
Yeah.
But to your point, he is 1A of maybe 3 or 4 number ones in this rotation.
Yeah.
And so, selling the farm for that guy for 1 year, I would not do that. I would want a guarantee, like, okay, if we trade here, can we extend him? Like, it would have to be something like that to make that okay. And I think the Dodgers aren't very big on doing that for a rental either.
Yeah, I hear you. I see somebody asking me for food cart recommendations. Save that for the end of the show. Ask me, and I'd love to help answer that. The third big one, and then I think the last few are smaller scale, but this one I think was the other one that made the rounds on social media. The Dodgers were asked a couple times about Teoscar Hernández. Lots of rumors about whether or not the Dodgers are going to be trading. Are they actively shopping? Are they receiving calls? There's been sort of conflicting reports, I guess you could say. Just to clear things up, Anthony, Teoscar Hernández is the Dodgers right fielder, ... right now, was the quote from Dave Roberts. Do you make of this what a lot of people, including myself on Twitter, wanted to make the joke, which was like the emphasis on, he's our right fielder. I mean, for now, like as of today, or was this just sort of a slip of the tongue? And what he means to say is Teoscar Hernández is going to be here in 2026.
Yeah, I think it's how Dave talks. And I don't think there was anything to that aside from him saying Teoscar is our right fielder. I think Brandon Gomes came out later and made it much more clear that, like, we don't have any plans to trade this guy. He said unlikely, and then he said something like, the plan is for him to be our right fielder or in our outfield at least.
Yeah, because they did say, hey, if we can there's a chance he moves over to left field.
Right.
Was more of the context of this quote was like, he's our right fielder right now because if we add a right fielder, then Teoscar might be our left fielder. It wasn't like because we're trying to trade him.
Correct. And we talked a little bit about this. You and I did. We talked about it last night with Matt, in that if you trade him and you don't get a big league outfielder in return, you've now doubled the hole that you're trying to fill. And now you need.
And I wouldn't expect something in return, but like alongside, right? Like you've got now the window is open to say, all right, you better go replace the outfielder that you just gave away, because it's going to be hard to match up with a team that is looking for a DH but is willing to give you a major league outfielder at the same time.
Right.
But I'm with you. That's got to be done in conjunction with something else in the pipeline. Right.
Because for the Dodgers, it doesn't matter what position he plays for the other team that's going to trade for him. The Dodgers use him as an outfielder.
Yeah.
And so you take that along with the contract's not a bad deal. Like it's not a bad deal. A down injured year for him was still 25 homers and 90 RBIs.
Yeah.
Like the OPS plus was just over 100. So that wasn't great, but expect to bounce back. The year before he hit 30 and drove in 100. That's not a far stretch from where he was at. He can get there again, I think. And the other part of this is that the landscape for right-handed hitting, like competent hitting right-handed outfielders, is almost non-existent at this point. Mike Petriello did a really good breakdown at MLB.com today about just how difficult it is to find competent hitters from the right side who play the outfield.
Interesting.
And like the Dodgers have one of those guys, assuming Teoscar Hernández doesn't have, another down season.
Yeah. And depending on how you define plays the outfield, I mean, he technically stands in the outfield grass. So I guess that qualifies him. Here's a weird scenario that just popped into my head. If the Dodgers were to trade Teoscar Hernández and then immediately sign Harrison Bader, assuming that nothing they get back for Teoscar is like major league impact in 2026, what would be your mindset about that swap? You go from Teoscar Hernández, who's a really brutal fielder, who only plays the corners and who's coming off of a down year, for Bader, who at the very least is an excellent defender in center field, which moves Pages to a corner where he's better. And yet Bader is like typically a minus offensively, although he's coming off of a career year. Like if you could swap out Teoscar and then go spend that money on Bader, upgrade, downgrade, or push for you?
I would have to know the return. Like
assume it's some lottery ticket, a couple lottery tickets down in single A.
I would not understand why they would make that move because they're in a win now mode.
You could do both, right? Like that's the counter.
But if that was the situation, they still now have a hole to fill, and they've taken one of the decent enough options off of the table. Now you're trying to fill that hole with even less options to pick from.
Yep.
Because you took Bader off the market.
Right. If you want Bader, just go sign Bader, right? Like you don't need to trade Teoscar in order to open up the spot for Bader.
Exactly. Yeah. So like it would be a really curious trade in my eyes, and one that like, okay, how does this help them win now?
Yeah. And the argument would be it improves their defense. I forget
what you still don't know who plays left field. Like if you can't go pick someone up and you end up with the Call Ward platoon in the other corner, how much does that actually help you trading Teo?
Yeah. By the way, Bader was a more valuable offensive player than Teoscar Hernandez in 2025. And obviously a dramatically more valuable defensive player in 2025 as well. But to your point, then you've still got to go find yourself a corner outfield, unless you love Ryan Ward and Alex Call, which be tough. Tough to love those guys.
Get your head checked.
Yep. Some quick hitters here. Again, we're going to be short tonight. We got about 20 more minutes. Clarification on something. I'm not sure anybody needed clarification on, Anthony. Mookie Betts, Gold Glove nominee. Mookie Betts will remain at shortstop in 2026. We don't know for how long, but no surprises here, both with the makeup of the roster, but more importantly, how well he played there defensively last season.
Yeah, not surprising. It's still comical to me that needs to be said at this point. The guy won the Fielding Bible Award. He's a Gold Glove finalist. He's very capable, obviously, of playing the position. I think he probably gets better defensively this next season. It'll be a second full one at the position. So, yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that this front office and they got asked about it. It wasn't like they just kind of spit it out. But I think the fact that it was a topic shows that like even the media is susceptible to like listening to the internet and understanding the stuff that's being thrown out there on the platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. Another piece of news, Tommy Edman will be delayed in spring training. Brandon Gomes revealed, not expected to miss a significant amount of regular season time, but will not be full go at the beginning of regular season. At the beginning of spring training as he recovers from ankle surgery. There was some hope and optimism, I think, Anthony, that he would be ready before spring training, that it would be full go. But is this a big deal to you that Edman's not going to be ready on opening day?
I kind of expected that. I didn't think he was going to be in the opening day lineup to begin with. So this isn't really surprising. And I do think that they treat him the way they treated some of their pitchers and some of the other guys who started the season hurt, in that they slow play him along. And they said, look, April, May, they don't matter for you. Like, we're going to make sure that you are, essentially bulletproof before we let you back out there.
Yeah, I'm with you. A couple World Baseball Classic news and notes. We've talked about how a bunch of these guys obviously are going to go play for Japan. Roki Sasaki, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and of course Shohei Ohtani, all expected to play. I believe it was Dave Roberts who said this, and it felt more like he wasn't reporting something as much as speaking into existence something that he hopes is the case, which is the Dodgers are hoping Shohei Ohtani will hit but not pitch for Team Japan. This would obviously be a dream scenario for the Dodgers if he is going to play, to limit the risk that you're taking on by playing in games that aren't in the Dodgers uniform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what Roberts and Gomes even said it too, and both of them were basically like, look, we haven't had the conversations with Japan yet, but our hope would be that he didn't have to pitch.
Yeah.
I think that's expected from everybody. I think Japan knows that going in. Like, they didn't have to say this on national TV like they did today, but I think Japan already saw the writing on the wall there. So it'll be an interesting conversation. I do ultimately think that Ohtani probably won't pitch. Is my guess, because the Dodgers can say, look, we're already giving you two guys.
Yeah. Well, and 3 if Roki, Sasaki, Yamamoto. You're saying 2 pitchers.
2 pitchers, yeah.
Yeah.
And Roki and Yamamoto, yeah.
And part of this quote was kind of hoping that those guys would be limited in their usage as well,
That as well,
specifically
yeah.
Yamamoto. So, because the other piece of this was, and the last bit of news that I wanted to talk about before we get to some questions, is Brandon Gomes clarifying Roki Sasaki will, quote, absolutely be a starting pitcher next year. This falls into the Mookie Betts category for me. I don't think anybody is surprised by this. I think this is the expected thing. But in case there was any 1% of doubt out there, Brandon Gomes, general manager of the Dodgers, has clarified Roki Sasaki no longer a relief pitcher weapon. He will be back in the rotation for the Dodgers.
Yeah, and I think more specifically, and you can read into this how you want to, but the question posed to Gomes was that he was on MLB Network. So they said, when we put up the graphic that says, like, here's the projected rotation for the Dodgers, should we put 6 guys up there, and should one of those guys be Roki Sasaki? And he said, yes, absolutely. Which tells me not just are they turning him back into a starter, which we all expected, but I think they're penciling him in to be in that 6-man rotation at this point.
So whose spot does he take?
How that all plays out is, I think, yet to be seen. It's the Dodgers rotation, so chances are one of these 7 guys between Snell, Yamamoto, Ohtani, Sheehan, Roki, and Glasnow will not be ready like in April.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah. And they kind of hinted with Shohei Ohtani, like his role, he's going to be a starting pitcher, they've said, but Dave said he doesn't want to talk about the 6-man rotation. So I guess we're doing that nonsense again. But he basically said, maybe there's some times where Ohtani gets 8 days off, where they have like a pseudo 5-man rotation and Ohtani just gets thrown into the mix every once in a while. But give me your confidence level. I mean, I know the Roki Sasaki thing was a great story by the time we got to the postseason. He found some success there, but I'll be honest, Anthony, we still didn't see a ton of reason to believe that this guy is going to be a weapon in 2026.
No, and I think we would be foolish to read anything into that. Like, it's, he was in a completely new role. It's a different thing that he was doing. It's a different position than a starting pitcher. Yeah. And so, he's got to develop a go-to secondary pitch, which the splitter kind of is, but then the fastball has to be good. It cannot be as bad as it was last year, obviously.
Which again, we've
one
talked
of the worst
about on this
pitches
show.
in baseball.
100 miles an hour doesn't make it good.
Right.
Because the flight path, how flat it is, grades out really poorly. So the secondaries have to be pretty much his primary with the fastball playing off of it.
Right. And so if he can develop a sinker, a cutter, even something like that, even though it's still technically like a fastball, that would go a long way in making him a viable option. I think what we saw, just based on what we saw last season out of the bullpen, that's not enough, but it's very promising, though. I will say that.
It's promising. It's kind of like the Tanner Scott joke we were making earlier. Like, the bar was so low. This is a guy that nobody expected to be anywhere near the postseason, let alone contributing in meaningful ways at the end of games. Now, not to be a Debbie Downer, I think you can make a case that there might have been a little bit of good luck that Roki Sasaki received as far as how he got some of the outs that he ended up getting. But nobody's going to sit here and argue that it wasn't encouraging. It wasn't up and to the right for Roki Sasaki compared to where the season started. I just keep coming back to, let's not make the same mistake many of us, myself included, made 12 months ago, where we just penciled this guy in and said, oh, for sure, he's going to be awesome. Because in some ways, Anthony, we have more reason to doubt Sasaki in 2026 than we did in 2025, because we actually saw him pitch at the major league level and struggle. We saw him go down to the minors and struggle. So he figured it out in the bullpen. I am still bullish up and to the right long-term on Roki Sasaki. If you're asking me, do I think this guy's going to be awesome in April of 2026? Unfortunately, my answer is probably not.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, but I do think that he can be a guy that is a mainstay in the rotation who isn't great, but is good enough to be there. And when you have a 6-man rotation, like at some point at the back end of that, that's kind of all you need to be. Because I think the guy is still too high of a prospect. He was the number 1 prospect in baseball coming into last season by several publications. And I think that's another thing to remember, is that he's still a prospect. I think the hype around him made everyone go, oh, he's the next Yamamoto, and he's going to be the Yamamoto starting now. And he's 3 years younger, far less professional experience, far less big game experience. So like, I think last year, I think is good for the resetting of expectations for him, because now I think we'll look at him more like a project, more like a prospect, as opposed to like this Superman flying in from Japan.
It's interesting because if you had to bet on Sasaki, Robleski, or Ben Kasperius long term, would you bet on Sasaki?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting because he obviously comes in with far more prospect hype and the whole international posting situation, number one prospect, all of that kind of stuff. It's just interesting how I'm curious to see how he gets treated compared to a guy like Robleski, who has had success at the major league level, who had, you could make a case, almost just as much success out of the bullpen in the postseason as Roki Sasaki did. And it's not with the hype, but like stuff wise, Robleski's throwing 100 miles an hour from the left, has seemingly better command, doesn't have the splitter that Roki does. I'm just curious. Again, the beauty is you don't have to choose. The Dodgers get all of these guys, right? And Emmett Sheehan I didn't include because I think we'd all take Emmett Sheehan over the rest of that group.
Totally.
But you throw River Ryan into that mix, Gavin Stone in that mix. Like, I guess I'm just not confident assuming that Roki Sasaki is going to be at the front of the line of the non-Sheehan young pitchers that are all going to be angling for meaningful starts for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also don't think the Dodgers say something like that in December if they don't believe it's going to happen. The guy was like, look, prospects, these evaluators miss on prospects all the time. It's not uncommon. But for several publications and several teams to be like, this is one of the best prospects in the world right now, I don't think they were all wrong. I think that's not to say he's a superstar right now, but I would say by the end of the 6 years of team control the Dodgers have of him, I would be willing to bet that he is going to be a really good starting pitcher.
Yeah.
That's that's the question I was answering. But I think your question about like, should he be at the front of that pecking order right now ahead of guys like Robleski and River Ryan? One, we don't know what River Ryan's going to look like either.
Totally.
And the other thing with Robleski is he's been more of a reliever for the Dodgers than a starter at this point. And so how do they actually see his future, I think, is still up in the air.
Totally agree. Let's get to some questions, all caps questions. We got about 5 to 10 minutes left in this show. JY with the super chat. I assume the team can negotiate with Samurai Japan on the specifics of the level of participation regarding Roki and Yamamoto, maybe not with Ohtani. Negotiate. I don't know if this is a safe assumption, Anthony. I think the Dodgers can ask for things. I think they can make recommendations, but Samurai Japan has no obligation to do what the Dodgers ask them to do. They're more obligated to what Ohtani and Yamamoto and Sasaki tell them they would like to do, but I'm sure they care what Dave Roberts and Brandon Gomes say. But at the end of the day, if Ohtani comes to them and says, I'm good to pitch, don't worry about what Dave Roberts said, Japan's not going to be like, well, your coach said you didn't want to pitch, so we're going to do that.
Yeah, look, I think the Dodgers will suggest, like, here's what our preference is. Everything you said is correct. If the player comes to Samurai Japan and they say, I can go, they put that team in a tough spot. But I think ultimately they go, okay, you said you can pitch.
Yeah.
What I think is probably going to happen is all three parties, the players, the Dodgers, and Japan, are all going to, sit around a table. Maybe it's a virtual table or whatever, but they're all going to hammer out like, okay, here's the game plan here. And I think that it'll be less of a soap opera drama than, we can kind of imagine it being. I think everyone will, by the time they get to the WBC, will be on the same page of what usage and roles are going to be.
And I would say these teams are not under the illusion that they get to do whatever they want with the players that are under their care. They tend to bend to the wishes of the teams around them. I think that's easier said when it's like the U.S. team, and there's probably way deeper relationships between coaching staffs and Major League Baseball. But we know how much this means to Team Japan, to the players themselves, and so we'll see. We'll see how those.
I think for the Dodgers, they might say like, Yamamoto's limited, Ohtani, we don't want him to pitch, but we're very curious what Roki looks like. Throw him.
That's exactly what I said. It's like, hey, whatever innings you wanted Yamamoto to take down, Roki can start every 5 days. Go out there. Like, that's a guy that they would probably love to get reps. They would love to get experience in that context. I'm with you for sure. Asks, is Ryan Ward a viable option given that he was good in AAA? 2025, 132 weighted runs created plus, 36 home runs, and the MVP. LA themselves added him to the roster instead of letting him go as a free agent. Not calling up to LA was being LA. Here's what I would say to this. The premise that he was good in AAA, therefore he will be good in Major League, is a flawed premise. I'm not saying that means Ryan Ward's going to be bad, but you can't point to a much older player who has played 3 seasons in AAA and say, look how awesome he was last year. He must be good at the Major League level. That's not 1 + 1 = 2. Again, that to me, though, doesn't mean Ryan Ward is definitely going to be a bust at the Major League level either. So remind us, Anthony, where are you at on Ryan Ward and his ability to hit at the Major League level? Nobody's expecting him to be a ton more than a Conforto, Teoscar Hernandez level defender in the corners, maybe worse. But where are you at on confidence level the offense will travel?
I think the expectation for me with this is if he can be a +100 WRC plus, it's probably a win.
If he's over 100, you're saying?
If he's over 100, yeah. So better than league average, essentially.
Which is the problem when you're as bad a fielder as he is. You need to be a lot better offensively than league average, right?
Exactly, and I think that's why, to answer some of these other questions, it's why the Dodgers never called him up. It's also why this is not just a Dodger evaluation. It's a 29 other team evaluation because Ryan Ward has been through the Rule 5 draft twice and no one took him.
Correct. All of before last season, anybody could have had him. They chose not to. And again, we've gone through, there is a narrative as to why he was not added to the Dodgers 40-man roster last season that actually makes sense beyond they don't believe in him. There's a world where they said, we didn't think he was going to help us in 2025. We wanted the 40-man roster spot. We knew we were going to add him to the roster at the end of the season anyways. We didn't need to make that move. However, it definitely doesn't. When they had a massive hole in left field and they claimed to believe in this guy and they said, no, we're good, right? We said multiple times. Be true. They've been telling us the whole time what they actually believe about him. Now they said something different when they added him. So we'll see. Richard asks, which happens first? Jeff adds a Tommy Tanks bobblehead to his collection. Blake embraces Teoscar Hernandez's offense, or the Dodgers celebrate Manny Machado's career. Definitely me adding a Tommy Tanks bobblehead. If anybody has a Tommy Tanks bobblehead, I will take it. I'll just keep standing on the fact that I was not being disrespectful to Tommy Edman last year. I was right. Some people would say, I know maybe he was injured, but look, there's no asterisk when I'm wrong. All right. So I'm not going to take the asterisk when I'm right about Tommy Edman.
That's fair.
I'm not anti-Tommy Edman.
I really wish he didn't get more injured.
He was killing it.
Because I wanted to see how real that swing change was and that power was. Like, was it just a fluke? Was it a flash in the pan kind of thing? I mean, it lasted longer than I would say, like, hey, here's your 15 minutes of fame. Like, it looked like there was going to be some consistency there. I wonder if we'll be able to see that this year. Well, if when he does come back, he'll be healthy enough to flash that again, because, if he turns into a 20 homer guy, that is a very different than the kind of league average that, we were expecting out of him or whatever. So, a lot of questions to be answered for him with the bat, but defensively would be fantastic if he could play center field regularly.
Absolutely. Some more questions here. Okay. Oh, Smile says, if we only sign Suarez and nobody else, not due to a lack of trying, what is your panic level at? Mine would be at a 0.
0.
Yeah.
I would be very happy with, like, if they just came out with Suarez and like said, okay, we're going to figure out this left field thing. Like, all right, everyone buckle in. But the panic level is still at 0.
Yeah, I'm with you. A couple food questions to get us out of here. David says, Jeff, no food pics from the holiday party last night. Heartbreaking. Incredible cedar plank salmon made last night. Some sort of meatball situation with like a cranberry chutney on top of it. Delicious. What did we have? Toffee cakes. It's like a British thing, I think. We got some caramel and some ice cream mixed.
Okay.
Yeah, we ate good. We ate good last night. Apologies for no pics. Cole asking the real good questions. Anthony, where do you stand on peanut butter and jelly? Are you a grape, strawberry, or other type of jelly jam guy, with or without milk?
Grape and strawberry are the go-to jelly and jams. I don't really mess with too much beyond that. No, we don't have any apricot here or anything like that. I'm all in on peanut butter and jelly. It's good as a kid. It's good as an adult. It's good as a grown man. I'll have it. And I'm not
white bread or wheat bread over there.
I'm not a big. I do wheat bread.
Okay.
I'm not a big milk drinker. So I don't really do it with the milk. But yeah, sign me up for a good peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, I'm a strawberry guy. Love Uncrustables, by the way. Uncrustables are fantastic. One of the great
strawberry for me too if I'm choosing.
And I'm white bread if I can, but I'll do pretty much anything.
We have a Costco size thing of Uncrustables in our house, and it's a variety pack. And one of the flavors in there is peanut butter and honey. Okay. And that's pretty good. I had never had that before until recently. It's pretty good.
Just throwing this out there. You throw one of those bad boys in the air fryer, little melted action in the middle. I'm just saying, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. Right. So There you go. The admin wants to know, have we asked what's going on with Anthony's fake hat?
Is it looking fake here in the background?
Well, you just got no logo on it. I think people are a little.
It's a melon hat.
What's a melon hat?
It's a brand.
Okay. So their brand is just blank hats.
Blank hats, yeah.
Okay. There you go. So not fake. Grand Theft Auto hat, somebody said. So there you go. Folks, that's going to do it for us. Oh, somebody said a melon hat, so they know what's up. History Man 0828 knows what's up. So it looks like it's AI, the chat says. What settings on the air fryer? I don't know. Throw it on toast mode or something like that and see what happens.
It doesn't have a PB&J mode?
No, it does not. Yeah. So, folks, we appreciate everybody joining us again tonight. A little bit shorter of a show. We've got to run a little bit early. If there is news tomorrow, Bruce and I will be back. If it is a slow news day with not a lot going on, then we will save it for later in the week. Last question, Anthony, will go out on this. I think the Dodgers do something before the winter meetings end. Agree or disagree?
I agree. I agree.
Love it. So I think there's news. So stay tuned right here on Dodger Blue 1958 on YouTube. We will be live. If they sign a guy like Suarez, Bader, they make a trade, we will be live here very, very shortly after that move. So make sure you're subscribed and ring the notification bell. That is Anthony Witrado. I am Jeff Spiegel. Check out the DodgerBlue.com app. Check out DodgerBlue.com. Check out the podcast, Apple, Spotify, and Google. We appreciate all of you. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night. Go Dodgers. And yes, even on a Monday, still chance.